Welcome to the Guns and Gavel Show, where Arizona's self-defense and firearms attorney, Tim Forshey, weighs in on the delicate balance between the law and personal protection. Learn about the legalities and realities of self-defense as he dives deep to discuss firearms laws, legal use of force, concealed carry, and home defense training. The Guns and Gavel Show starts in 3, 2, 1.
One other question I wanted to ask you, because I've faced this with my clients. Eventually this all, to some degree, dies down. Right? Eventually the press leaves your front yard. Eventually you go back to work. Eventually you go to the grocery store. How did people treat you? Were you treated differently at work? Were you treated differently by your friends? The old, what we always call the mark of Cain from Genesis. Is that something you experienced, for better or for worse?
The lieutenant governor of Texas came to me 2 days after the shooting, and he said, "We're going to treat you like you're a law enforcement officer that's been in a shootout. And with that, we want you to take mandatory time off work.
Good. And
we want you to see the Texas Rangers counselor." And I said, first off, you can't give me mandatory time off. You don't control my job. And
right.
He said, "I'm going to the hospital that you work for and talking to your CEO as soon as we're through talking here."
It's good to have the lieutenant governor as a friend, huh? Yeah.
He said, "I think they will see it my way, even if the state of Texas has to pay your wages while you're off." And so the very first thing when I went in for the counseling is the Texas Rangers counselor said, "Your life has changed now, and you're going to have to get used to a new normal." And I said, "But I love my old normal." And she said, "That went away." And I had no clue how did it go away? And I told her, then what is my new normal supposed to look like? And just like every psychiatrist in this world would say, well, that depends on you.
Yeah.
I wanted somebody to tell me. And then when I finally did, the hospital, now this was November 5th, and the hospital that I worked for, the CEO said, "You don't have to come back until after January 1. Well, after 3 weeks of sitting at the house, I went back to work, and she said, "Oh, you don't need to come back." And I said, I do. I have to get to some sort of normal. I can't do this anymore. I need to be normal again.
Yeah.
And I walked into the hospital, and the people that I worked with, the coworkers, would avert their eyes from me walking down the hall.
Wow.
And scoot past me real quick so they didn't have to talk to me.
Do you think that was out of respect for you, that they want to bug you, or was it because they feared you because of the situation?
I think it was they had no clue what to say.
Yeah.
None.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, I'm the same guy. I'm still your friend.
Right.
Why do you ignore me? And the executive director of the hospital said, "We're thinking about sending you to a different campus."
Wow.
So they have several hospitals that we were in charge of, and said, "We're thinking about just putting you over at the Robert B. Greene for 6 or 8 months." And I said, "Why?" I said, "You're just pushing things back. If it's 6 or 8 months and then I come back here to work at the main campus, then I'm going to go through the same thing then." I said, "Let's just rip the Band-Aid off and let it work its way out. The only thing that's going to solve this problem is to just expose and go through it. And eventually somebody will talk to me. And I'm here to answer any questions anyone wants to ask, but I can't continue." Well, it turned out that my life was going to be changed in so many ways, and I ended up stepping down at the hospital. I was asked to go to the Arctic Circle to speak with Native Alaskans, and they said that they sent their missionary to find me in Sutherland Springs. And they told her, because she was a woman trying to reach them for Christ, and they saw the story in the Arctic Circle. And they said, if you want to speak to us, bring him. We'll speak to him, because they're a very male-dominated culture. And they told her, they said, we saw him in an interview and he talked about Christ. And what we respect most in our culture is a man that would risk his life for his tribe. They said, that's what Mr. Willeford did. Bring him here and we'll speak to him. So they flew me into Kotzebue, Alaska. They put me on an aluminum boat, and I went across the bay and 90 miles upstream into the Arctic Circle and walked out into a village with no running water, no power or anything, and was able to speak with Native Alaskans. My life got changed in so many ways. I will tell you, that would have been a bucket list for me, just to go hunting in the Arctic Circle of Alaska. But to actually go up there and speak to Native Alaskans is so over the top, I couldn't even imagine that.
What an honor. Yeah, but you deserve it.
Well,
you did. Stephen, I meet a lot of smart people. You know, I hang around with people that think they're smart, and some people actually are smart, but I don't meet many wise people. And it's just nice to tell you that I think you're both, from my perspective, for what that's worth. You're a wise man, and that's rare. I don't see it nearly often enough. So, for what that's worth. Have you met any of the people that are, I guess, for lack of a better term, in a similar position to you? Have you ever met Jack Wilson from the West Freeway Baptist shooting, or have you met? Not that he was viewed quite as well by our society, but Kyle Rittenhouse or George Zimmerman. Have you met any of these other folks that have been through something similar and been able to compare notes with any of those folks ever? I'm just curious. That is a weird question.
Actually, yes, Jack Wilson and I are friends now.
I would love to have a cup of coffee with the two of you guys. What a great conversation that'd be, yeah.
Why wouldn't he be a friend? Old gray beard, old black Western hat, Texan, you know, I think right. We represent what Texas is, you know. Don't mess with an old beat up Texan.
That's
you
right.
Just don't know. I met with Kyle Rittenhouse, and recently Eli Dickin, his lawyer, contacted
in Indiana.
Eli Dickin's lawyer apparently is a firearms instructor, and he is a defense attorney that has defended people for nothing. All he does is defend people that use deadly force. And he asked me, he said, since your event happened, I've been watching you. And he said, Eli's 22 years old. He said, when he is able to speak to the media, he said, I would like him to be able to speak to you and you mentor him through. He said, I've never seen anybody that's handled the media. Well, and that was a great compliment for him to say, I've never seen anybody that handled the media like you did. I was like, I truly believe that God orchestrated that also.
Well, and it seems like Eli has decided to stay out of the public eye. He's decided, I don't want to speak. I don't want to be made into anything. Was that part of your strategy, or was that his decision on his own?
I stayed out of the public eye for a very long time until I figured out that there were certain things that I needed to do. Again, I do 4 to 5 radio shows a week. I do 2 to 3 podcasts per month. And so I'm using, I guess, my story to hang on to the rights and the freedoms that we have. So I guess at this point, you couldn't say that I stayed out of the media. It's just I choose the media that I deal with.
Well, I think you're doing a good job of that from what I've seen, because I've seen I truly don't think I've seen a negative report on how you did what you did and you yourself. And that's, in this day and age, that's rare. So,
I went on a liberal radio show, and the first thing the guy called me a vigilante.
Oh.
And I took offense at that and told him that was incorrect. I didn't go looking for trouble.
Right.
And then during the interview, he said, I don't want someone like Larry, Moe, or Curly like you to come rescue me if I'm being shot at inside a church. And I said, then you would rather, he said, I'll wait for the police. And I said, the police were 5 to 7 minutes behind me. And I said, how do you call me that when I hit the shooter 6 out of 6 rounds?
Yeah.
I didn't miss him once. My bullets didn't go anywhere but making contact with the shooter.
Yeah.
And you would rather stay in the church. And don't get this wrong, because law enforcement, in my opinion, I am all about the thin blue line, the highest respect in the world for law enforcement. But they're second responders. You're your own first responder.
Right.
Bingo.
Right.
Bingo.
They can't be there on time all the time. Very rarely are they there. They mop up blood, take evidence, and hopefully somebody gets prosecuted and goes to prison. But too many times they get let free from the court system and stuff. But you can't depend on the police to be there when you need them the most. I never wanted to see red and blue lights more in my life than that day.
I bet.
Yeah. And I think it doesn't get played up. You were 6 of 6.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, in that incredibly heated moment, and with all of the stress that's going on, having chased this guy down, whatever, 6 for 6. That's incredible.
Yeah. It really
Well,
is.
and I found out,
compare that to law enforcement statistics,
I found out that our national average for law enforcement in gunfights is about 17% hit ratio.
Right.
And I know, John, you talk about being accurate, and the only thing that does stop shooters is hits,
Yes, anatomically significant hits.
Yeah.
And I've heard that 1,000 times from you, and I know it. John Lott, and y'all know John Lott, right?
Real well.
The shooting is John Lott. So John Lott is a friend of mine now, and that's crazy in itself that I can say I know someone like John Lott.
Isn't he great?
But the most recent FBI stats that have come out, and it was from 2014 to 2021. The FBI stats say that in mass shootings, only 4% of the time are they stopped by non-law enforcement civilians like myself. So John Lott took all of their information. And the first thing John did was he took out all of the shootings that happened in gun-free zones, because of course a civilian is not going to be able to stop it in a gun-free zone because we don't have our guns there.
Right.
What was left from 2014 to 2021 were 214 mass shootings that happened that weren't in gun-free zones, and 114 of those were stopped by non-law enforcement.
Right. More than 50%.
More than 50% were stopped. 94% shootings happen in gun-free zones.
Yeah.
So when they happen outside, over 50% of the time, it's someone like myself that can stop a shooting. And what John Lott also found that was really, really interesting is in those 200 and those 114 that were stopped by civilians, not one innocent bystander was hit.
Isn't that interesting? And they always talk about us untrained Curly Lowe and Mary's hurting all, or Curly Lowe and Larry's hurting all these other folks, and there's no data whatsoever to support that. You're exactly right.
It does not support it in any way. And what that says is the people that do carry that would have the courage to stand in that gap between evil and innocence have been to the range a few times and has taken it upon themselves to train. Not that law enforcement, but I truly believe that the people that go out there and shoot at the range on their own and maintain their own firearms and buy your own firearms, we're the guys that go out there and train, where law enforcement goes and qualifies once a year or whatever. And I'm not by any means trying to generalize, because I knew an officer, like I say, one that competed with me, and he was good with his gun, and he trained me and stuff. So there's that law enforcement officers that realize that their life may depend on their gun at some point and may enjoy shooting like I do, and gets a higher level of training than your average officer.
Yeah. I know that you were actually, I think still are, an NRA certified instructor, Stephen. I think you were an instructor for quite a few years prior to this. What types of do you still do any training of others, or are you doing any training as a student, or both?
And see, this is something that I heard you and John talking about before I came on the air. So I will never turn down any training.
Amen.
We
all agree on that.
I'm never arrogant enough to think that I don't need to be trained constantly. It's that guy that his grandfather taught him how to shoot, and he thinks he knows everything. They're the ones that scare me, Yep.
We had that exact conversation, you're right.
I've been asked before, why are you going through this training? Aren't you a pretty good? Well, yeah, I do. But the moment that I think that I'm so good that I don't have, that I can't learn something from someone again, that's the moment that I need to just put the gun away and fade off into the distance, but I'm always willing to be trained, and there's some people that I guess could learn a few things from me, but I'm always willing to listen and train with those that obviously, former law enforcement that trained law enforcement, former Army Rangers, or people that have been in the fight and stuff before. I'll learn any, night training. I've done night training. I've done all kinds of things, and I'm never arrogant enough to think that I'm so good that I don't need it. I don't train people anymore because I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And that's not GOA's mission either. GOA doesn't. We are strictly a legislative group that goes and fights these laws and stuff and makes people aware. And we educate people on what our government's trying to do to our rights, is what we do. But we don't really, there's other groups that do training and stuff. We do a lot of events where we get to compete, and that's fun. So I get paid to shoot in those events. And
there you go. You did something right.
What a beautiful thing. They probably bring you the ammo too, right? You're shooting other people's ammo, getting paid. Life is great.
Yeah, what a beautiful thing. I was just recently in Arizona where Sure Shot Ammunition was doing a thing, and GOA competed against Sure Shot, and our team beat Sure Shot. So,
well, we would expect nothing less, right?
Well,
and also here's a plug. 30 cents of every dollar that you give to GOA is not spent on private jets. So there's that too.
There's that too.
Yeah.
I'm still flying in economy class. And
right. There you
go. I just went to an event with our senior vice president, Eric Pratt, and he flew economy class. He booked his own flight, and he actually screwed up his own flight. And so he did he was trying to book it as an AM, 11:30 AM, and it ended up that he had booked a 12 or 11:30 PM flight. And so he had to, it was all messed up and stuff. And I just thought that was so hilarious, and that he was flying economy, and just like any other person, he showed up there. he showed up there in khaki pants with, a GOA t-shirt on, a flannel shirt unbuttoned and sleeves rolled up to his elbows and stuff. And I thought, that's a senior vice president that you
There
want.
you go.
That's the kind of guy. Yeah, there you go. The money's being spent
He's
the right
not
way.
wasting a whole lot of your money on other things, and we won't mention,
Right.
any of that. But GOA's money is going where the money is supposed to be going.
Right.
And again, we don't badmouth any other gun advocacy group. We hope we all succeed. We're pulling the same wagon.
We're all pulling on the same rope. Amen.
But I choose to work for GOA because I think we're pulling harder on that wagon than anybody else is.
You got more ore in the water than the other guys do. Yeah. So.
Well,
Stephen, I can't thank you enough for finding the time to do this today. I'm sure you got better things to do than talk to some local yokel from Phoenix. I really, really appreciate it. The next time you're going to be out here, if those folks invite you out here to shoot again, let us know. I would love to have you in person in the studio. I would also love the honor of just buying you a meal. I would just really love to shake your hand and buy you a meal and tell you how much I appreciate you and folks like you. There's not enough people like that, and I just really, we should all treasure it when we come across the real deal like you. So thank you very much.
I'm going to be in town for CanCon, which all the suppressor companies are getting together.
That's in April, I believe, isn't it?
And I think to go to CanCon, that's another event where I get to shoot all these suppressors and stuff.
Even more fun.
We did CanCon in Savannah, Georgia, and it was the first time I walked up and down a range and nobody had on hearing protection.
All right.
Because that's what it's all about is suppressors. And
yep. Good thing we tightly control those extremely dangerous suppressors the way we do, isn't it? It's so helpful.
Well, in Europe, it's considered uncivilized if you shoot a gun and you don't have a suppressor.
Right. It's just
why
rude.
are we OSHA has said that it's a safety device, to protect hearing. Why are we still caught regulating suppressors?
Well, like my dad used to say, because common sense is not very common.
Yeah, it's true. True indeed.
Well, again, I can't thank both of you guys. I appreciate John having the time to stick around and adding some insight to this more than either of you know. And Stephen, it's truly a treat to meet you. It's a treat to meet John, but I met him years ago. It's a treat to meet you. And I just can't thank you enough for finding the time today. Appreciate it very much.
Well, it's nice to meet you, and we'll meet you in person. John, met you before in person, and always a pleasure.
Look forward to seeing you in person again soon, Stephen.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Stephen. Thanks for being here today.
God bless.
God bless you.
And that wraps up another episode of Guns and Gavels. Join us next time to learn more about the legal use of force, personal protection, and firearms training. Show your support and hit the like and subscribe buttons to make sure you never miss an episode. Till next time, stay safe.